screened, but it is being recorded and published online following the meeting. Could I ask you to press the raise your hand button when you want to speak? And please leave your mic on mute. Otherwise we get some background noise. So thanks for that. Sorry about this. But yeah, could I ask if what I will do is to ask the panel members first of all if they'd like to introduce themselves, and if I can quickly go through if they're here or they might be joining us afterwards. I'm just looking at the people on. Angela, you'd like to introduce yourself?
Hi Lyndon, hello everybody. My name's Angela O'Connor. I'm one of the councillors for Mumbles Ward.
Beth?
Hi, I'm Beth. I'm the primary schools co-opted member.
Thank you. Bev?
Hello everybody, I'm Beverly Hopkins. I'm the councillor for the Landor Ward.
Francesca?
Good afternoon everyone, I'm Councillor Francesca O'Brien. I'm the other part of Angela representing Mumbles Ward, so thank you.
James?
Afternoon everyone, my name's James. I'm councillor for Sketty Ward.
Okay, through the councillors here that are on. Robert?
Robert Smith, Cabinet Member for Education and Learning and Councillor for the Llwchor Ward. One of the councillors for the Llwchor Ward.
Great, thanks. Sandra?
Hello there, I'm Sandra Joy. I'm the councillor for the Uplands and Bryn Mill Ward.
Have I missed anyone who was on? Yeah, no, and I'm Lyndon. I'm Lyndon Jones. I'm councillor in Bishopston and chair of the panel. So welcome everyone. We thought it was a good idea. The panel thought it was a good idea to get together with one of the comprehensive schools and then the schools in that particular cluster, so we could talk about the new curriculum, which is obviously quite a significant thing that's happening. So you know, really important. So the meeting, really the important bit of the meeting is when we will be coming down, listening to what you have to say, and you know, any things that you want to tell us as well. So that's the important thing. Could I ask if we have any apologies?
We have apologies from Sue Jones and the Chair of Governors from Pontedilais Primary School, Jane Harris, and Lee Burnell. But I believe we have somebody coming in his place. Claire, is it?
Claire Bate, I think it is.
Claire Bate, yeah, it's coming in his place. Yeah.
Claire's on screen there. Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Disclosures. Are there any disclosures of that anybody needs to mention? No hands up. So I'm taking that as in. Oh yes, there is one hand up. Mr. Gareth Rees, Pontedilais.
Sorry, it's not a disclosure, just a correction for the minutes. Our Chair of Governors is Sue Bradshaw, not Jane Harris. And I believe, I'm just checking that Sue's with us. I'm pretty sure I've seen her.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, Sue's here. So, yeah, just a correction for the minutes. Sue Bradshaw is our Chair of Governors for Pontedilais Comprehensive.
Great. I could see, no, Jane Harris was down as the Pontedilais Primary School.
Apologies.
Okay, not a problem.
She's one of our governors as well. That's my...
Sarah Burns. Sarah, you've got your hand up.
Yes, hi. Just to say that my Chair of Governors, Helen Roberts, unfortunately can't make it this evening. She sends her apologies.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. There's obviously a prohibition of whip votes. Could be a little bit of housework. The minutes of the previous meeting. I'm sure all the members of the panel have read them. Could I take them as a true record? I could see Sandra and James the proposer
Can
and
you just
seconder?
change the E to B? That's all. My name's is down as E Allender rather than B Allender, but it's teeny tiny detail.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, thanks. Great, we'll we can do that, yeah. Right, we asked if we'd sent a letter to the cabinet member, and and I know that letter we had a response a little while ago, so members of the panel will receive that letter shortly. Okay, Michelle will send that out to everyone. Okay. Great, thanks. We asked if there were any public questions. There weren't any. So we're now getting on to the important bit of the meeting, because, as I say, is to meet yourselves. And the way the meeting will run is that we've got David Thomas with us. So welcome, David. He's the school improvement advisor, and he's going to speak, first of all, give a short address on about the cluster and so on. And then we have the Cressy Morgan, the Partneriaeth Link officer, who's going to talk about the support provided to the cluster. Then I'm going to ask each school to introduce themselves and give a brief outline, and that is a couple of minutes each, if you could, because obviously with the number of schools present, we're limiting that to a few minutes each. And then the important thing then is the discussion with you, for you to have your say in what you think, how it's you tell us how it's going, and so on. So with that, could I hand over to David Thomas, the School Improvement Advisor.
Pranam Darbau. Thanks, Lyndon, for the introduction. So just for clarity, so we've got a team of school improvement advisors that look after our primary and secondary settings and PIUs and special schools in Swansea. So I delegate that responsibility to two individuals who are with us today. One, Andrew Owen, who is the Commission School Improvement Advisor for the secondary setting, and Karina Hansen, who is the same for the primary settings. So my introduction, Lyndon, as we discussed yesterday, is very briefly for members as an overview to Curriculum for Wales to set the scene. So you'll be aware that Curriculum for Wales is now statutory. And one of the priorities that Welsh Government set was that we should develop a shared understanding of progression. And that's firmly where the work in Swansea has been set over the last term and slightly beyond that. So in essence, that's where we're focusing our efforts in terms of the professional learning. I've mentioned the two officers that undertake the visits of both the primary and secondary schools. I'd like them just to introduce themselves, but it's a very brief message from them, and the same for me, because the journey for this will be best said and laid out from those settings themselves. So without putting you on the spot, Andrew, would you be okay if you just gave a very brief update on your involvement with the comprehensive school, and then after yours, if I can introduce Karina.
Yeah, no problem, Dave. I hope everyone can see me. And I've been the support visitor advisor, just started in September for Pontedilais. However, I have known Mr. Rees professionally for, well, almost 20 years. In terms of Pontedilais, I suppose the message I would like to give to the Cabinet this evening is one of the things that I found when I walked in there was with a bit of envy, I suppose, about the way that Mr. Rees talked about the linked up working between the comprehensive and the primary schools. And one line that stuck in my mind was very much about, he talked about the end product coming out at 16, the GCSEs, but the firm foundations being put in prior to that. And I suppose the envy, and I've written a few points down here, was very much based around, although Pontedilais is a school of 800 and I think it's about 860 pupils, the associated primaries and the pupils' preparation and the strong communication links between the primaries and the head. And I'm not just talking about the phone calls, I'm talking very much about the proper transition work. So it's not just simply a transition day for the pupils. So the pupils really do feel part of a continuum of learning. That the way it was described to me when I spoke to some pupils was they were quite easy. They were proud of being pupils of Pontarddulais, but they were clearly still aligned with what their primary school was, which, being frank, as a head of Birch Grove, I don't see that from all of my pupils, if I'm being totally honest. Strong emphasis on joint working, not just joint working in terms of the new curriculum, but I think that it appears that the joint working has gone on prior to the emphasis on it within the new curriculum that David has just highlighted. There's an inclusive ethos. It's quite clear that the school values all children. The Tydysgu facility, which is for pupils who are disengaged at secondary level, the links there clearly link back to the main curriculum, and the pupils did not lose contact with their peers, which I think is a strength that is not seen in all schools. And I thought that was a particularly strong emphasis in Pontarddulais. As I said, joint working, the fact that the transition process isn't at one day, it happens over weeks, and regular meetings and the involvement of partneriaeth within that, not just as a one-off event, but high value given to the ongoing events. And I'm going to stop talking about that because I don't want to step on Cressy's toes on that when she tells you about those. Is that okay, Dave?
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Andrew. And before I just introduce Karina briefly, I just wanted, it was remiss of me to say thank you to those professionals and schools who've committed to this. It's really kind of you to share the journey that you've been on. And from my point of view, Lyndon, if I may, it'll provide a springboard for us to share this practice, hopefully, with other schools and settings across the authority, and hopefully with the weight of scrutiny to support us on that journey. So, Karina, over to you.
Diolch. Okay, again, I'm a commissioned head teacher, so I could share Andrew's view that we look at Pontarddulais cluster with a little bit of envy, because they've got a really good way of working together, and it's really clear across all the visits that I've done, obviously been to all the different primary schools, that there's a really shared and collaborative working approach across all of the schools that have led to this development of progression journey that they've got up and starting. And I think the impression that I'm getting, it's a really complex piece of work that they've done, because you've got 6 schools effectively working together towards bringing an idea, a shared understanding of what we mean of progression, of how children are going to be working along their learning journey. That's really difficult, because each of those schools have got their own approaches to their curriculum. So it's been a really complex picture across Wales, I think, for schools. We've spent a lot of time developing our curriculum, and now we're looking at what progression and assessment looks like. And it could feel quite overwhelming, I think, for schools, because you feel like you've done all the work and now you're going to redo all the work. I think the approach has been quite clever, because they're not trying to rewrite curriculum in each school. So each school is going to have its own flavour, but what will be shared across that cluster is the understanding of what we mean by progression of a child's journey. So any child from any school within the cluster, when they arrive at the secondary school, there's going to be a real understanding of where they are in their learning journey, where they've come from and where they need to go. So that's the really important part. I think that there's still going to be a real sort of autonomy within each of the schools of their curriculum and their, the way they are, which is individual to every school, as it should be, and that's what's set out in Curriculum for Wales. But there's also going to be a real shared understanding across the cluster, and I think it's really impressive that the clusters managed to work together on that, because that is not an easy journey, and it's a complex journey. I think one of the advantages the cluster have got is that all of those schools feed into the secondary, so that they've got a definite set of schools that feed into them, and all the children go along there. I think it could be more complex to take that model to other clusters or other secondary schools as well in Swansea. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, I've got one hand up. Gareth, is it? From Pontedillas Primary.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to add the context there as well from what's just been described by the support advisors, is that the community of Pontedillas and the feeder schools, I think, always have worked well together in that there's support there, positive and constructive challenge within our schools, but always that partnership, which is a key word for our cluster. And there's been no sort of competition between each school in order to be better than the other one, but always in a supportive kind of way to help each other. I think that's important as well, and it needs to be, that needs to be shared, and that we're always willing to take on board, you know, help and advice from the local authority and Partneriaeth, especially now, in moving forward, because at the end of the day we are there to help the children. So I think it's important that we recognise that as a cluster we help each other and support each other. There's, you know, a lot of experience within the heads in the group as well, and that really benefits the cluster. And it's a very supportive one, even after the emergency childcare setting, where we all grouped together as one cluster and helped each other out there, shared resources, shared buildings and shared staff as well, to make sure that was able to run effectively for the children. So it's very much a positive partnership where everyone tries to support each other.
Great, thank you. Cressy, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Lyndon. And I hope you don't mind, I've brought my colleague Adrian Smith with me as well. So my name's Cressy Morgan, and I'm one of the senior strategic advisors in Partneriaeth, and I'm linked to Swansea. That's my local authority that I work with, and I work closely in partnership with David and his team at a strategic level, supporting with the planning of professional learning and support for Swansea schools. And within Partneriaeth, to help with partnership working at all levels, every cluster in the 3 local authorities has a link officer into Partneriaeth, and their role is to help support and broker professional learning for their cluster schools. So I'd like to, if it's all right with you, Lyndon, introduce and hand over to Adrian Smith, who's the cluster link officer for Pontedillas, for him to give a quick overview of the support that's gone into Pontedillas, because he's the one that's been driving it and leading it for Partneriaeth. Is that all right if I hand over and ask Adrian?
Absolutely, no, thank you very much.
Thank you, Adrian.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Adrian Smith. I'm the A lead for science and technology and digital technologies within Partneriaeth. I also have the actual advantage of having been a deputy head in this cluster, deputy head of Pontedillas Primary for many years before I made the move to Partneriaeth. So I'm very aware and have been part of that working with the group, and you know, perhaps that has helped us as a consortia to work with them, because there's been a large degree of familiarity there. Principally, our journey with respect to this this progression planning with the schools started back in, I think it was around about June, when I met with Helen Tallett after the science and technology progression workshops that Partneriaeth had put out, and she particularly liked our approach to planning for progression within the new curriculum and the associated planning frames that we created, and she felt that it could be used as a cluster approach and adapted for other AOLEs. This was taken on board by all the schools, and then from July to October there were cluster meetings for each AOLE occurring, and these were attended by the school's AOLE coordinators and the relevant Partneriaeth officer. Support was given by either modelling an approach or by providing expertise, help in interpreting the guidance, principles of progression, etc. And that was really important because, as you will know, each AOLE has its own foibles and the model needs adjusting accordingly. So, for example, in maths and numeracy, they talk about the 5 proficiencies rather than progression steps. So Partneriaeth were able to support each AOLE with the relevant officer specialising in the relevant AOLE. In November, there was an inset day for all the schools, and again, this was attended by the relevant partner officers who gave their support as and when needed. And then as a link officer in December, I held drop-in sessions in the secondary school with the project leads for each AOLE to obtain feedback and build a picture of how the planning and the project was progressing. And this I delivered on the January inset day for the cluster. That day was the same process as before. They were carrying on their planning, but as a link officer, I gave an update on the progress that had been made to date, reassuring staff of the main stumbling block, which is that time scale that really needs to be taken and how long it is going to take to sort of achieve a body of work like this. And then we also looked at strategies being used by each of the AOLEs and shared those to help out. And I think between June and now, I've had about 6-7 meetings with head teachers and lead staff so far, either online or in person. So there's been a lot of work done from our point of view, and good progress has been made. And I believe the head teachers have agreed to a further 2 development days, which are going to be needed. So, you know, the project is well underway. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that sort of overview from both of you. We're now going to ask each school to introduce themselves for a few minutes and give a little bit of background. But before that, can we certainly had a scrutiny program committee this week, and I was able to say that I wanted to thank I thank you, the heads and the chairs of governors, the teachers in each of your schools and the governors, because you don't often get thanked enough for the hard work that you've done, especially over the last couple of years with the COVID pandemic and how you had to cope with all that. You were learning on the hoof. So big thank you from the whole panel for what you're doing. Thank you very much indeed. Because I know it's something that we feel very strongly about, and we're here to support you in any way that we can. So right, back to the schools. Could I kick off with Pontedillas Comprehensive?
Yeah, certainly. So I'm Gareth Rees, head teacher, Pontedillas Comprehensive. Good evening, everybody. So the context of the school, 11 to 16 mixed English medium. We 860 pupils now, which is the largest we've ever been. Up to 3 years ago, we'd never been over 800, so we're bursting at the seams. Free school meals, currently 3-year rolling average of 15.4. Put that in context. Secondary schools national average 20%, 24% of our pupils ALN. We accommodate up to 10 pupils in our special teaching facility, which for PMLD, that's profound and multiple learning difficulties. Pupils' attendance, was adversely affected last year during the coming out of the pandemic. We were 88.1% last year, but really improving this year, 93.2% for the autumn term, which incidentally is the highest of all the secondary schools in Swansea. The school last inspected in 2016, all measures rated as excellent, and pupil outcomes have been maintained that they're generally excellent across the board for cores and foundation subject. And yeah, I think I'd like to reinforce the message coming through. I think a large reason behind the school's success is the close working with partner primary schools, which has built up over many years, well-developed transition program, but it's more than that. It's what happens during the year. We run Bond Book Awards, literacy. We've got a Maths Magic morning coming up where all primary schools send pupils to the comprehensive, and it's built over a number of years. And this co-cluster curriculum, I personally find it very exciting in terms of what we can do. I think we're at the point now we know what we want to do, we know how to do it, and it's a matter of getting on with it. But with that comes resource, of course. Yeah. Any questions at all?
Shall we do that afterwards with the questions, if I may?
Okay,
so
fine.
we'll just do the overview. Sue, your chair of governors, do you want to add anything?
No, not really, but what I would like to say is that it's been really interesting sitting here listening to the improvement advisors saying that they look on the cluster with a bit of envy, because I think I'd probably taken it for granted. We very much get feedback from Gareth and from the staff in the governing body meetings, and we hear about the positive work that's been done across the cluster. And I think over the years, I really think I must have taken it for granted, because hearing now that this isn't across the board and it isn't what you see with every cluster has been interesting. So I think that's the only comment I'd like to make, really. I feel very privileged to be involved with Pontedillas Comprehensive and the cluster, and hearing what positive work they are doing.
Right, thank you. Pengelly Primary. You're on mute. Ellen, you're on mute. There we are.
You might start hoping that I'm still on mute by the time I finish. I'm Helen Tallet. I'm head of Pengelly. Been working here for over 20 years. I've been head since 2013. With a smaller school in the cluster. And for those of you who don't know where Gravesend is, we're halfway between Pontedillas and Gosainan, and it's not just one road. There is a whole village behind that road. Presently got 122 pupils on roll. That includes 19 part-time nursery, because we are 3 to 11. The term isn't planned admission number anymore, but I still call it that. We have 15 for each year group, because we've got 4 classes, each split. We've got 4 teaching staff plus myself, 7 teaching assistants, breakfast club play workers, 3 midday supervisors, cook in charge, a cleaner, and a part-time caretaker. So that's our staff. It's quite a small staff compared to most schools. Approximately 23% of our pupils are now on the SEN register, but with the new ALN bill, only 8% are in receipt of an IDP, which means 15% aren't registered anywhere. So we've created our own little register for those who've got extra needs but don't qualify for an IDP. Our free school meal indicator fluctuates from year to year. At the moment, it's quite low, it's 10.6%, which is nice for us. There are currently no LAC children, no social service children, no EAL. We've got 2 families who their first language now is English, but they do have a second language. But otherwise, it's very, it's a traditional village, traditional Welsh village. Most of our children attend from the catchment, but we do have a large proportion of preferred placement. And in recent years, we've had to start turning pupils away because the school population has grown, and there is building works going on at the moment behind the school as well. So what will happen there, we don't really know. But that's us in a nutshell. Please excuse my throat. I've had a cough for 4 weeks now, so, and I do talk a lot.
Great, thank you for that overview. Chris Scott. Chris, do you want to add anything? Chris is the chair of governors.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Chris Scott. I'm chair of governors at Pengelly. I've been involved with the governing body at Pengelly since, he says, trying to work this one out, 2011, when my daughter started attending the school as one of Helen's preferred placements. Equally, my son is now there and is also preferred placement for Pengelly. I mean, not much to add other than what Helen said about the school. It's a very, very small community school. It's very much got the community feel about that. It's pupils at the school are given a range of educational experiences, and I think that's one of the benefits of being in a small school. Our pupils haven't really got an option as to whether or not they're in the school play, because we haven't got the numbers to be able to to be able to give them that choice. So they're in it whether they like it or not. But I think they all do well out of that, and certainly my two have. As I say, nothing really more to add other than what Helen said. I think that we've built a really strong relationship with cluster primary schools. I've just made a note here that I'm fortunate in my work that I get to work with lots of people across both Wales and the UK as a whole. And as parents do, we all speak. And when we talk about transition and our children moving up to secondary school, I can safely say that not one, whether they're based in Wales or whether they're based over the border, not one has the transition experience that our pupils are lucky enough to get. So I think that's a real success. I think it's a real benefit. And certainly my daughter, who's in she's in year 10 now, and she's absolutely benefited from the transition and the relationship with all schools across the cluster, not just the secondary school. She benefited with working with other schools during her time at Pengethley as well.
Great, thank you. Pontliw Primary, Alison.
Hi, I'm Alison Norman, the head teacher of Pontliw Primary. I've been in place since September 2013. I'm very privileged to be head of a lovely school in a very nice village. It's changed over the 9 years I've been here. We've seen a real change in catchment and a changement in children that attend with us. I'm between two larger primaries. I sit between Penllygare Primary and Pontydylais Primary, and we often share pupils back and forth, which is quite very different for us all. But yeah, I'm very lucky that I work in a lovely village school. We have seven single age classes with currently 224 pupils on roll, so we're over our admission number at the moment. Our pupil numbers have increased since I've worked here. We were mixed age classes, we're now single age classes. We've got quite a few. Our free school meals has also increased dramatically over the last 4 or 5 years. We used to have less than 2% free school meals. We're now up to 10.7% free school meals, averaging out over the last 3 years to 10%. We are very high ALN for our catchment. Lots of them are out of catchment and our preferred placements. We currently have 16 IDP and statements, no specialist teaching facilities, so they're all taught through mainstream classes with 2 IDP pending. We're usually around 28 to 30% SEN in old money. In new money, as Helen kindly pointed out with the ALN, we're now down to 9% or 15% if you include all the others. But we love our ALN pupils and are an extremely inclusive school, as anyone who'd visited would say to you. We've noticed lately, I think since COVID, a massive increase in parents and pupils needing support regarding health and well-being. So the new curriculum has been pivotal in that. It's crucial that our pupils get health and well-being. So I'm really pleased that that's a new area of learning within the new curriculum, because we have seen a massive increase in the need of that in the whole community and with parents and pupils. We do have some Welsh speakers. When Velindre closed, we took quite a few pupils from Velindre, so we do have some families who are Welsh speaking. We currently have 3 looked after children. We currently have a few children on the Child Protection Register and some EAL children. We also have some cultural diversity, which we haven't had until the last 3 years. So our school population has changed quite dramatically over the last 3 or 4 years. We've changed as a school and are hopefully moving with the times. Nearly all our pupils transferred to Pontydylais, so it's a lovely one for us. It's great to work in our cluster because all our pupils go to the same place. Lots of them play football with people from Penllygare and Pontydylais. They have lots of links with the community. It is a great community that we work within, and I'm really privileged to work within the cluster, so I'm very lucky that I moved into a cluster that had strong links to start with, and hopefully we've managed to develop those links and move forward. So that's basically where I have apologies for my chair of governors. Unfortunately, he's very poorly. He did pop in yesterday, so he sends his apologies that he hasn't been able to attend tonight's meeting, but he really isn't well. And in fact, he's almost lost his voice, so I don't know how much, bless him, he'd be able to contribute. But he is really proud of our cluster also and all the cluster working that's going on.
Great, thanks very much, Alison and Richard. all the best on our behalf. Hope he's better soon. Penllygare, Sarah Burns.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sarah Burns. I am the acting deputy of Penllygare Primary School. I have been in the school for nearly 25 years now, deputy for 15 and acting head for about 8 weeks. So this is a very new experience to me. Here it goes. Penllygare Primary School. It serves the old village of Penllygare and the new developments of Park Penderry, Tecoed and Park Penllygare, so it has a very diverse catchment. Recently, the village has been given urban settlement status due to its housing and economic developments. Pupil numbers have reduced steadily over the past few years as the local authority have changed the pupil admission number to 43 to support the school's overcapacity. We are a full school, but we do have a waiting list, which is a lovely position to be in. We have also got across our school, there is plans for a large housing estate of nearly 600 houses and possibility of a new school, but as of yet we haven't had any further details on this, so watch this space. 16% of our pupils attend our school from outside catchment. 85% pupils living in our catchment area attend the school. Those who do not tend to attend faith or Welsh medium schools. Around 13% of pupils are recorded on the school's ALN register. 17 pupils currently have a statement of educational needs, including SDF unit pupils. The 17 families are in receipt of multi-agency support. We have 7% of pupils that are eligible for school meals. We have had no fixed exclusions in the past 3 years, and there have been no racial incidents recorded in the past 6 years. Around 7% of our pupils have English as an additional language. Currently, there are 14 teachers at school, which is including myself, the acting head teacher, 2 assistant head teachers who took up their post in November. There are 11 mainstream class teachers and 2 SDF units and teachers. We have 2 level 4 teaching assistants, and the makeup of our school is 2 part-time nursery classes, 2 reception classes, 9 mixed age classes where are 3 year 1-2s, 3 year 3-4s and 3 year 5-6, and 2 SDF units for pupils with profound and multiple learning difficulties, which is classed as PMLD. Our average class size is 30, excluding PMLD, which is above the LA average of 26. The planning of the classes are reviewed regularly. We have 3 buildings which present challenges for the upkeep and demand a large resource budget. We also have 1 full-time office manager, an administrative assistant, 25 teaching assistants, but unfortunately, we do not currently have a caretaker. So if you know of anybody, please let me know. The school was last inspected in November 2019, and all 5 key inspection areas were judged as excellent. We have a wraparound facility, which includes breakfast club, nursery wraparound and after school club. And we had our most recent inspection on that this week, which is another first for me. I'm very, very grateful to be part of a lovely school with wonderful colleagues. And I have to say, I can agree with everything that has been said earlier, a very supportive and helpful cluster. And they have been very, very kind and generous to me in my new acting head role. So thank you, colleagues, for your help and support. I will continue to need you.
Great, thanks, Sarah, and good luck in your new job. Helen, your chair of governors, is Helen around, and does she want to add anything?
Unfortunately, she could not make it today, so apologies from Helen.
Not a problem. Right, Gareth, Pontedillas Primary.
Hello, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great stuff. Well, first of all, I'd just like to say, if anybody does want to come and visit our school, they're more than welcome to, because then you'll see firsthand what our little community as we are in our school is like. So the offer is there for anyone on the education panel to come in and come and have a look at what we're doing in school, okay? And then you'll get actual hands-on experience. So we've got 422 pupils in our school, about 72 part-time pupils in the nursery. We've got 13 single-year classes with 1 mixed class of year 2 and 3, which we're looking to de-split, I think is the word, as numbers have grown in our school over the last 12 months where we had the split. Around 25% of pupils are eligible for free school meals. We've got about 18% of pupils of having ALN. ALN is something, additional learning needs is something that we try and look at in great detail in our school, and I put a lot of emphasis to support our elenco in school who is currently off timetable to be able to look at the new ALN bill, which is, you know, it's a lot of work for schools at the moment, and it's not the job of just one person, so I try and get a team in to support him. It does put a lot of pressure on him, so I'm sure all other heads as well are trying to support their elenco in the new ALN bill. But we're also looking to support parents in this as well, in the changes. There's a lot of meetings going on with parents to discuss things with them, to try and support them, to go through what it means, what the changes are, and how it will differ moving on. I've been a head here since 2017. When I started, I had hair, but as you can see now, it is quite a difficult job. So the last inspection was in 2018, so that was in my first year of being a head as well, which was great because it gives you some targets to use as well from the inspection to move forward. And the inspection team was very good. It was very much a process of discussing where we think we are, how we move forward. And I think if all inspections are like that, it would be something that could benefit schools in general and local authorities in helping move forward. So I'm very much interested in Eston reports coming out at the moment, looking at recommendations for schools and what that means with the new curriculum as well. We're very much trying to focus on health and well-being within our school, not just with the pupils, but with staff as well. Health and well-being is very important, and it's about working with staff to make sure that their place of work is somewhere that they want to come. There's always issues within our community as a school, and we try and support staff through that as well. And we're looking to try and become more of a community school. We work well in the community, but we're trying to develop further links with our community as part of the new curriculum as well. And we've already created a new nurture room, which was done before the Welsh Government decided to give grants for areas within school, but that's very much welcome as well as any finance is. So we're looking at creating within school places for children that can work in a different kind of environment, or if they need to go somewhere before going back to the lessons, or for focus groups to go in. And it's looking at changing the way school can operate for certain children, rather than trying to get children to work for what school should be. So it's about adapting approaches, and I think the new curriculum will reflect that as well within pupil voice, which we're trying to look at as well. So it's what we can do for the children, as everyone is important. We're trying to work with parents more within the community and build on what we're doing. Looking at community grants for working within the hall. We've got a family liaison officer who is going to be developing her role to try and help parents with outside issues, filling in forms, trying to get grants themselves, any finance issues, ALN issues, working with different agencies as well, and looking to try and create a type of cafe sort of system where parents can come in and talk to different agencies that we can get in as well, to get that community spirit, which I know some other schools in Swansea have done as well. So that's it. That's in a nutshell. And again, just saying how well the cluster is doing. I was fortunate to work in the same cluster as Al's Norman previously as well, and that was really good cluster working. But I think, you know, this cluster has taken it on even further, and as Gareth said, not just working at the end with transition, but making sure that it's throughout the year as well with transition. So very fortunate to be ahead here.
Right, thank you very much. Is Jane your chair of governors here? And if she is, does she want to add anything?
She would love to be here, but she's away on holiday and she would love to talk about various things. So she's not here, I'm afraid, but she has sent her apologies in.
Not to worry at all, but thank you very much. Right, Llangefellach Primary, and we have Claire.
Hi, I'm Claire Bate. I'm Deputy Head here at Llangefellach Primary School. I've been here for 10 years now, and the school has changed dramatically over those 10 years as we've grown. So we're a community primary school for boys and girls between age 3 and 11. We have 8 classes, a nursery providing morning and afternoon sessions, and single form entry from reception to year 6. We're currently at 244 pupils, with an average class size of 28.1. We have 9 full-time teachers, including the head, and 11 qualified teaching assistants. We're situated on the north of Swansea, adjacent to the M4 motorway. We retain much of our village identity, with the majority of housing being private, with a smaller number of older original properties. We're neither prosperous nor economically disadvantaged, but we do include a minority of relatively prosperous homes. We have 35% pupils attending the school from outside our local area, with 6% who are entitled to free school meals, which is well below the national and local averages. We have 3% of our children with English as an additional language, and English is the predominant language spoken at the school, although we teach Welsh as a second language. Our baselines here indicate that the children's attainment on entry to reception are above the local average, and subsequent assessments indicate a significant number of children who reach high attainment leaving us. We have 4% of pupils at the moment identified as requiring additional learning needs, which is a lower proportion than found in most schools in the local authority, and 2% of our pupils carry a statement of additional learning needs. We were recently inspected in May 2021 with very positive outcomes, and all recommendations given were already identified by SLT, so that was a rigorous process, but a very positive one. We have a CIW registered wraparound facility, which has helped our school grow and been important to the growth across this over the 10 years. So we offer parents the opportunity to return to work as soon as possible, while also supporting the school's drive to improve standards. We have a wonderful team here and are lucky to have a great community, and the children are working well with us on the journey towards the new curriculum, with well-established pupil voice groups who, like I say, play a big part in the journey and the vision of our school. So that is us in a nutshell, and thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Claire. Is Michelle your chair of governors with you? And if she is, does she want to add anything?
No, I'm Michelle Kidwell. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very fortunate to be chair of governors here at Llangefellach Primary School. I've been involved since 2014, not as chair, just part of the governing body. Since my 2 of my children actually attended both Llangefellach and Pontedilais Comprehensive School. I can say, with great authority that the transition process throughout the education, both primary and comprehensive, was absolutely brilliant, because neither of my children actually never wanted to go to school, which is a first, I think. We're very fortunate here in Llangefellach to be, as a governing body, to be very much part of the journey that we're on here with the new curriculum. We're heavily involved with the planning, with the school improvement plans. And as part of the areas of learning, we also have link governors that actually visit the school. We meet regularly with the leaders and the children, and it's a really, really positive process. So we're very much enjoying it and looking forward to what's coming. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Right, thank you all. It's great to hear what's going on in the schools and the great work that you're doing, and a little bit about your school as well. So thank you very much. As you know, we've got a few questions. there are also a few like supplementaries. So what I thought I'd do, because there are a number of questions, what I'll do is there's the headline question which you've got, but I'll ask different councillors to ask the supplementaries before you answer, okay, so that you've got the full picture before you know, before you answer the question. And the main one was, the first one was, how is it going so far? And I know that Angela and Sarah and Francesca have got a question to add as well. So Angela.
Hello. Yes, basically just really wanted to know how the new curriculum is going, and is it sort of enabling more creativity, and are the teachers actually preferring it or not, really?
And Sarah.
Hi all. How does the school staff and teachers feel about the changes and how they're affecting their pupils? And I've got the second one. Shall I carry on with that?
Please, yeah, we'll do each of them, yeah. And
do the school staff and teachers feel changes to the curriculum will have a long-term positive effects, particularly in regard to children with learning difficulties?
And thank you, Sarah. And then Francesca had the last question in that section.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all. It was really interesting. Have schools noticed improvement engagement from their learners? Thank you.
Great, thanks. Right, who wants to kick off?
I've been given question 1, Helen Tallis, Pengetty.
Okay.
I don't know why they put me first, because I'm the one that talks the most, so we could be here a long time. No, I think I will sort of tell you that there's a couple of warts and all bits in it, but on the whole, it's extremely positive. At this point, we do, as a cluster, feel that we're making good progress, but we must say that it's quite a strange situation to be in that we're now constructing a curriculum that's already running. In reality, the process that we're going through at the moment probably should have started 2 years ago, so that the teaching staff themselves are confident to deliver what this brand new curriculum is. Having said that, we've sort of, for the last couple of years, we have been working mainly within our own schools to get used to play about with it is dismissing it, but we've trialed lots of different things over the past 2 years and put a different slant on the way we've worked. Certainly, with regard to the children themselves, there's a great deal more input from the children, moving from what they want to learn, what they already know. Obviously, as teachers, we are slightly controlling. So we always have an idea of where we want to go with the curriculum, but we listen to the questions that the children ask and take their learning from that point on. We find, and I know I'm speaking for all of my staff, and I've worked with a number of groups in the cluster meeting, we do believe that the curriculum itself is excellent in principle, because it is skills-based, it is progressive, and it's relevant to the children and their experiences and needs. So the principle of it, we have absolutely no problem with, and are very supportive of the movement being made. It's quite nice that it's freshened our approach, because we're trying to change the themes that we're using to suit, because we very much start with what the children know in terms of their environment as well. As a small village, we always say Gravesend haven't got a lot, but it's quite funny when you start looking into things. I mean, for example, we say now we haven't even got a shop in the village, but 30 years ago there were 15. So we can talk to the children about things like that and develop and look at the growth in all sorts of industry. It's a coal mining village, so we can start from that point. Also, there was an American camp during the Second World War, on the common. And for those of you that live locally, you'll also know we had the pleasure of the burning tip for a couple of years. That was extremely unpleasant. We actually felt like we were going into the bunkers during the war at that time, and there was pig soot falling on us. So all of these things that the children are surrounded by, we've actually thought about even more now and bring it to the forefront and then move from there. The process we've gone through as a cluster over the past 6 months has been particularly valuable. I facilitated all AOLEs because we decided as a cluster that it was better to have a level of consistency between the AOEs, and we decided the only way you could do that really was by having one person facilitating each of the groups. But it's been incredibly positive, and the staff from the comp and the primary have actually suggested that we maintain the methods that we've been using to pull all the ideas together, because we feel we've got an even better understanding of what's happening in other schools and phases, because we all have views and judgments, and sometimes it's better to sit and hammer it all out. We've really enjoyed, and I've been particularly impressed with the honesty that's been involved in the discussion that we've had. People have been willing to say what they're worried about. People have been prepared to get excited about the new thing, which for some people can be a little bit embarrassing. My big message is, though, that there's far more work involved in constructing this curriculum than I think anyone envisaged at a school level and particularly at a national level. We've been given a skeleton and we have to put the meat on it, basically. So our moan, I suppose, is that in itself raises issues, because even though we have a very positive workforce and excellent ideas, we have to spend a lot of time. And whilst a lot of the staff have done a lot of work in their own time, we can't have that as an expectation. So at schools, we're having to provide release time, which of course costs money. We've been very fortunate that the local authority have supported us, and partneriates have also given grants to schools. So that's certainly helped in the development. We really have tried to develop a consistent approach to each of the AOEs, but I'm pleased if we're using acronyms that you don't understand, by all means, shout and stop. But we do also recognise that they're quite individual as well. So there will have to be certain differences in how we progress. Right at the very beginning of the introduction of the new curriculum, I think most schools felt that we were left to our own devices by the government a little bit. And so schools have had varying approaches and are at very different stages of development. Again, going back to what everybody has said, I can only reiterate that as a cluster, we do meet regularly. The heads, we meet a couple of times a term as a matter of course, and then throw in the odd emergency meeting if we feel the need. So we have tried to stick as closely as we can to each other. But I will also say they're very different little areas. So there are certain parts of our development that will be quite different. Realistically, we realised that, do you want me to stop?
No.
We realised that this was going to have to be a joint working programme when, first of all, the local authority ran sessions with Lucy Crean. And it made everybody realise then that we had to not only develop our own curriculum, but develop a co-constructed curriculum that children could move from school to school, and there would be a level of consistency. Lucy sort of sowed the seed that we had to do this. If I can speak personally, because I actually sat in on 6 of our days, or first 6 days, and came away with a message. I did learn quite a lot, but also came back and we decided we didn't necessarily want to follow the same route as she had suggested. And I suppose that's a nice part of it. We can decide as a cluster how we're going to move forward. Since then, we have worked very closely with partneriaid, particularly over the last 6 months. And on coming together, we do recognise this need for consistency while keeping that level of subsidiarity that we all enjoy. It did take a few attempts to find a format which could provide the way forward. And you get very excited when you come up with something. You take it to everybody and they say, no thanks, it's a bit frustrating. But we then agreed on a way to move forward. And the processes we've gone through, I'm certainly happy to share anything we've done with you. But I mean, that would take probably at least another hour to go through. But, you know, I'm happy if anybody wants to come out and see what we've gone through, or if you want me to send you things. The problem for us, I think, probably as a profession, is we want to see the finished project, and there are still so many unknown variables that there is a level of frustration. But I will stress everybody is extremely enthusiastic, and there is a level of excitement. I think the only thing that I haven't covered from the follow-up questions is how this provides for children with additional learning needs. Well, the beauty of the progression through this curriculum is that you could cover the same theme, general topic with the children, but they will perform to their ability. And there's progression, the progression is there, and the way we're laying out our progression map, the progression is there from age 3 to 16. So it can provide for your ALN pupils, and it can also provide for your more able and talented pupils within the same work that you're doing, because we're looking at what the child themselves is able to do. It is extremely creative, particularly because of the use of pupil voice, because you go to them with a general idea of what you want to cover. We start by finding out what the children already know about that area, and then ask them what they want to know about it. And then the teachers go away and plan according to what the children want to know. So it does, to be fair, tick every box. You get the occasional moan because of the level of work involved, and I would be lying if I didn't say that. But it's more about a lack of time. But in principle, it is an excellent curriculum, I think.
Right,
I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I can see Angela's put her hand up.
Hi, sorry, Chair. I'm not sure if I'm able to ask a question at this point. Just saying that it seems that as a cluster, you are all working really well together through. Clearly, it is challenging still because you get into grips with it. How much guidance did you have from the Welsh Government on it? I know you said obviously not that much. I'm just wanting to know how much you had.
I think basically, in truth, it was more about the curriculum appears on Hub, which anybody can access, and it was basically make of it what you can. There were pioneer schools set up, and if I'm 100% honest, and this is where perhaps I shouldn't be the person to speak, because you do get it from me, I'm afraid. The pioneer school system was set up just after I took over the headship, and I thought I won't put the staff through that now, because I thought there's going to be a lot of work in this, which there was. What I didn't realise was there was also a lot of money in it. And I think if I'd known that, I might have taken that opportunity. But when the pioneer schools went off to do things, they were told they weren't supposed to tell us anything. So we didn't really get a great deal back. Most And let's be totally honest about it, COVID did affect our preparation. There's no two ways about it. But I just think that there has been a level of, I wouldn't say we floundered, we haven't floundered, but it's a level of finding your own way to a certain extent. The negativity inside me did at one point think, are we being given this so that we fail? So then someone can say, well, here you are, well, this is what we want you to do. The positive person inside me will also say, I'm not going to let anybody say that we failed. Let's get on with it and let's show what we can do with it. And to be fair, our staff haven't let us down. I think the biggest worry is once Estin come in and are making their judgment, we still don't wholly know what they're looking for. So
great.
That,
Great.
Yeah, what they're judging on. Thank you for that.
Thanks very much. I'm mindful of the time. Anybody else want to come in? I can see I just got G Davis. Is it Gareth? Oh, Gareth. There we are at the top.
Yeah, just to add really about how the staff feel about change. I think, we go through change quite a bit in school anyway. You're always looking to do other things, or you're always looking to do things in a better way than you've done previously. And I think with the curriculum, there was a lot about change management. There were courses on for change management and how to work with your staff and how you get staff that come with you straight away because it's something new. How you get the ones in the middle, how you get the influencers, how you get the people at the end. Oh, I've seen it all before, not doing this, it'll change in 20 years. So there was training available on working with staff and looking at change. And I think as leaders, we were given at the beginning the big picture of why we need change, what it would help us with, and an opportunity to make the curriculum your own. How would you like to see the curriculum? I think when the curriculum was in its design stage, there were a lot of heavy influences within that, putting what they thought their recommendations were into it. And I think as we go along now working towards the new curriculum, as Helen said, there is that worry that if schools are doing things for their area, their curriculum, how do you know that that's going to be okay? And one of the main things we're looking at is progress within school. And I know people have talking about Estin as well, what they're going to say. There seems to be certain things coming out from Estin with recommendations that are higher than other recommendations. So there's clearly things that they are looking for within it. And it does put a lot of pressure on schools when you're trying to have the new curriculum in. And you've also got Estin coming in as well. I think schools are worried that they're going to be doing something wrong with the new curriculum. I think that's the worry. And it'd be interesting with further inspections to see how that goes really. But at the end of the day, you're looking at how well are children doing? Are they making progress? And then the bigger question then is, what is progress? Is progress the same in my school as another school? What does strong progress mean? So these are the things that we'll be looking at, and how we talk to staff about change as well now.
Okay, great, thanks. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll go on to the next question. The next question then, and Councillor Mike Day. Mike.
Yeah, thanks. If I can make a couple of observations before I ask the question, as it were.
Of course.
First of all, I think I'm sure that other members of the committee have been impressed with the way in which the cluster is working and has been working together. And I think probably that will enable you to start meeting some of the challenges that you've been facing. As a slight aside, I just found it interesting that all the primary schools, apart from one, are start with the same initial letter as Pontedilla. So did you have to have a school starting with a letter P to be part of the cluster? But anyway, that's an aside. And I think the thing that has already been touched upon, and Helen and Gareth already done that, is what do you find most challenging? And I think if I can kind of summarize, I think some of the things that have been said are that being able to find out what is the guidance. I mean, particularly in terms of if we can call it standards, and in terms of benchmarking and moderation in relation to the different standards, and I think that's something which has come through, and more importantly, as a scrutiny committee, and what we're here to do today is, in terms of sharing good practice, is having identified what those areas that you find most challenging, how are you addressing those challenges, across the cluster? How are you undertaking that kind of benchmarking and moderation process?
Okay, I can see Helen has got her hand up to respond.
Yeah, sorry. I wanted to backtrack a little bit because I do like to speak without notes, but then of course you miss things out, and I didn't thank the partneriaeth reps who were here. We have had a heck of a lot of input from them, and they have genuinely they've been challenging, not in the sense that a naughty child is challenging, but they have challenged us, but they've also provided a great deal of support, and I think we've had a level of consistency from them as well, which has helped us through. Swansea heads as a whole work very closely together, and to be fair to David, he's running a team now that they are working well with us. I mean, they have limited resources as well, obviously, so there's only so much they can do. But I think with regard to the consistency, Councillor Day, I think it is this sitting around the table, and we're moving from moderation, as we have done for years with regard to level. We have decided that we're going to have moderation in the form of AOLE book trawls, so that representatives from each school can get together, and when we're talking about the work we've done and how the children are working, we can actually look at work the children are doing and see if we can reach agreement over what we're saying about what they're capable of doing. I mean, the moderation always worked well over levels. I mean, we'd have disagreements. We're quite a forceful cluster as well. Everybody's always got something to say. But I think that's important and that's healthy. It's no good all agreeing in a room and then walking outside and saying something different. So, we do tend to clash heads on occasion, but it is purely professional. And we sort things out by the end of it. I'm not overly worried that our progression won't match for that very reason. But common sense tells you they're going to be slight deviations because it's subjective. So.
Okay, great, thanks. I'm mindful of the time and the number of questions. Anybody else want to come in there? Mike, do you need to come back?
Yeah, if I may, I mean, I think one of the things, again, just going back to what struck me from the conversation so far, is that there are examples here of good practice. And I don't know if Robert or Helen, who might be on screen, sort of could say a little bit about how that's shared, with other clusters. Clearly we have, the colleagues in terms of the improvement areas, both, from the council's point of view and partneriaeth. And so I would guess they have a role, but, has there been an opportunity for this particular cluster share the good practice that they seem to have developed?
Yeah, we've got David on, and David's got his hand up. David's obviously the school improvement advisor. David.
Yeah, Councillor Smith, are you happy for me to respond to Councillor Day?
Yes, by all means, yes, carry on.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Good question. This cluster in particular have had the opportunity for one of their settings to be inspected. I call it an opportunity, they don't. Following that successful visit by the inspectorate, Llangollen Primary shared their curriculum for Wales journey, which of course will have been formed through some of the work that they will have done with their cluster, but of course the hard work that the school does individually. They shared that during an online event, a virtual online event, through our primary heads networks. It was another school in Swansea as well. So that does provide the platform. Unfortunately, or fortunately, Estyn are the ultimate verification service in terms of what quality looks like in our schools. So we do rely on their verification. But of course, the school improvement visits, I've referred to them regularly when we meet during this on CDC, is a tool by which we can establish effective practice and a database for. And if I'm honest with you, this is the first academic year since the pandemic when we've had that opportunity. And I know Helen has alluded to the fact that there are limited resources within the school improvement team, but part of the work that we do, both in analysing Estyn's All Wales inspection and recommendations, and the work both we do with the region partneriaeth and the School Improvement Service, will be to gather that effective practice and share it across our schools. So through those tools, those forums and networks, we aim to continue to share. And there are other clusters as well who are working in a different way too, and it might actually be that those models, suit other clusters as well. So I hope that answers the question, Mike.
Great, thank you, David. We've got Robert with his hand up and Cressy. Robert.
Yes, just to add to that, I mean, you'll recall, Chair, the work of the PDC as it then was before the last election, yes, where we looked at preparedness for the new curriculum and sharing expertise, mapping out where the expertise lay in our schools and enabling brokering school-to-school support. That was one of the things that was identified by the PDC as something that was going to be crucial to successful implementation. And David has described the progress has already been made. That's work that will always be ongoing as the new curriculum develops and as the expertise develops in different schools. So what we want to ensure is that all schools in Swansea benefit from the expertise and the learning that exists in other schools, and that we're all working in partnership to the same agenda. And I think that clearly the evidence this afternoon is that there is a very strong cluster here in Pontarddulais and this feeder primary school. So I think that's something that's certainly worth noting from today's session, Chair.
Great, thanks, Robert. And as you were chair of that PDC, I know now you're the cabinet member. It's one of those things that you will want to take forward. Because that was a policy that was developed, and I was on the committee that was developed by that committee. So it's really important. Thank you. Cressy.
Yeah, just wanted to pick up a couple of points that you raised there, Mike. So clearly what we're seeing in the Pontarddulais cluster are the benefits of historic type cluster working, and also Adrian being the link officer, and so a history there and an existing relationship, I think probably meant that as a cluster, they were able to accelerate a bit more quickly, perhaps, than some other clusters are. But what we're certainly doing in partnership with David and his team, and we've got a clear focus for it this term, is identifying where there's emerging good practice in other clusters. And particularly over the next couple of terms, a key part of partneriaeth's role is going to be finding ways to develop case studies to share with those, because what we know, and Karina mentioned this earlier, that schools within clusters can be very, very different. And so it's not always going to be, a cluster working has to just be the schools linked to this secondary school. There's something around linking schools up across Swansea, but also possibly with other schools across the region, which is something that we can come in with. But Adrian and I were talking earlier, there is the other clusters within Swansea. I can think of, say, Gowerton, the Goya cluster, Olchfa, the Swansea Bay Partnership, Penarail, are all at sort of early stages of beginning to develop this kind of cluster approach, but in slightly different ways. But it is beginning to emerge. But our role is to work closely with David and his team to get out there and learn the schools and make sure that we are sharing what's happening. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody mentioned earlier a fear of getting it wrong. and a fear of sort of sharing in case you're getting it wrong. So it's also that role of being supportive, meeting schools where they're at and guiding rather than making anybody feel that they're getting it wrong, because that's the worst way to feel if you're trying to innovate.
Right, thank you very much. Anybody else got anything to add? Otherwise we'll go on to the, I'm mindful of the time, go on to the next question. I'll read the main bit which you've been sent, and then I know there are two supplementaries from James and Beth. How are you supporting your teachers and school staff to transition to the new curriculum? And then James.
Yeah, I'm obviously very keen to hear the answer to that, but just to broaden it slightly as well, how is the school also engaging with the wider stakeholders? So, you know, learners, family, and the governors. Would be good to hear that.
And Beth.
Just how far in advance are they planning the new curriculum?
Right, who's going to come in on that one?
Can I start with
Absolutely.
So I'm looking at how are we supporting our teachers and school staff in the transition. So at Llangabelach, we've been working on this for a long time. So prior to working with the cluster, we'd started our journey looking at draft guidance in ad sessions and asking AOLE leads to just slowly and gently get used to the documentation, get a feel for it in its very early stages. They then presented to each other what their AOLE lead area meant to them, so that we all had a hands-on with the new documentation. We wanted to give the AOLE leaders ownership over their area and their curriculum, so a lot of time was put to just the very early stages. Then we discussed where we wanted to go as a school, what our vision was for the new curriculum and what we wanted for our learners. We started to think about the content related specifically to our area, so that involved doing a lot of research. I worked with the local history society and built relationships there to gain a picture and feed from their knowledge of our area. We worked with the children, we spoke with governors as well about to gain different areas of expertise of people who'd lived in the village over a long period of time. We looked at progression and continuity. That side of the journey was progressive at times, but in honesty, sometimes it felt like we were 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. And it was at that point where we were trying to find our way that we started working then with the cluster, which we were really grateful for. So it provided our staff with a nice base in order to start cluster working. And I know when we all met as a cluster, we were all at that same sort of point of just dipping toes in the water, really. So since working with the cluster, it's been really helpful to gain a shared understanding of approaches. Like we encourage the children in class to work together, talk to each other. It's done the same for us. Breaking into our AOLE areas within cluster days has been really beneficial, just to have dialogue amongst staff, thrashing out ideas, concepts, approaches, and having a shared vision of where our children are and where we would like them to be as they reach the comprehensive school and their journey going forward through comprehensive school. Comprehensive staff and primary staff have been able to work together, whereas up till this point, I think primary teachers sort of spoke to primary and comp spoke to comp. So that's been really great for them to see where concepts are first developed with the younger children, and for us to see where they will be going on their journey through higher education. We've given a lot of reassurance to staff that we're going in the right direction, because it is daunting and it can be, you know, difficult at times, as we've said, to have confidence, but to reassure that excellent practice is still excellent practice. The fundamentals of it are still there, and we don't want to lose that. We just want to use the opportunity to make things better for our learners. So ongoing, we're now providing more training and time for our staff to try things out, try new areas of the curriculum, try new projects, in order for us to evaluate and develop them further. We have informal meetings, we have lesson drop-ins to see how things are going, and lots of informal chats. But I think one of the beneficial points and the final point of mine from cluster working is within the leadership role. So the cluster heads have regular meetings, and I know that on the agenda, the curriculum is obviously there in every agenda, where they can take decisions. So when our teaching staff are meeting separately, there's a shared approach. So if there's any questions, the heads either bring those questions together or it's thrashed out. So there's consistent messages going back along throughout the cluster constantly. As Helen and everyone has already said, they work together, and that is, those key messages are fed down then. So when staff are meeting in isolation, we're all working towards the same hymn sheet there.
Great, thank you. Thanks very much. Has anybody got anything to add? James or Beth, do you want to come back at all? No, I think you've answered that very well indeed. So well.
Sorry, Lyndon. I just wanted to ask. It's a bit of a softer question, really. I mean, just about the teachers and school staff. Are they generally coping okay? I mean, it sounds like several of the teachers have mentioned the level of work and the pressures being put on their time. You know, are your staff coping okay? Is everyone good with it? You know, that's where I just want to get a feel for that. I suspect they are, but it could be a very stressful time.
Yeah, I mean, it's about providing, as leaders, providing the training, the time. So we have weekly ad sessions every Monday, and that has been our focus for many years. As I said, it's reassurance and praise along the journey that they are doing things well, and it's fine to try something. It's fine as leaders to try something and backtrack, and that has been something that we have done here, where we've gone forward in one way, met as a leadership team and said, right, hang on a second, we're not comfortable with this, or we want to go back and look at this, and that's fine too. And I think that's been important to show staff that we're also happy to do that and take their views on how things are going and adapt with them. It's moving the journey together rather than you know, just making decisions and taking them along for the ride. It's been a whole school journey, really.
Great, thank you. Sarah.
I was just going to echo what Claire said, really. I think as a profession, we are very reflective. We are reflective practitioners. We know not everything can be perfect all the time. But as Claire said, we try to give people, staff the opportunity to have a go. It's important that they have a go, and it's important that they try something new. We do have a new curriculum. It is exciting, and we do need to try new things. But the good thing predominantly is that we do work together as a cluster. You know, we work together to have that consistency approach. We have our inset days, you know, we have a lot of opportunities to come together. The heads meet together regularly, and we do thrash out any inconsistencies. And by that way, the message that goes back to the cluster and to our staff within school is that you're doing a good job. This is the way we want to do it. However, if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. We have, you know, we are reflective practitioners. We go back on things and we can adapt. And I think it's really important to model that to our staff as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Beth.
I was just going to say maybe more for the chairs of governors in the room about how they feel about being involved in the process, and you know, if they feel like they've been kind of meaningfully engaged with the governors really on the developments.
Okay. Anybody like to come in on that one? Otherwise, perhaps one of the heads would like to. Oh, here we are. We've got Sue. And
hello.
Yeah, Sue first then.
From my point of view, we've definitely been kept informed, and we do receive regular feedback about the whole process and the involvement of the clusters and Pontydylus Comp as well. I think I did say earlier, I perhaps didn't recognise just how well this cluster were perhaps doing. I think I took it for granted, but we're certainly well engaged within the process and understand the journey that the schools have been on.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Claire.
Hi, sorry, it's Michelle from Llanfair.
Oh, Michelle, sorry. Yeah, there we go. Hello.
Hi. Yeah, I mean, as a governing body, and particularly the monitoring committee here, we've been heavily involved in the school improvement plan from the get-go. So the new curriculum has been really, we've been going along the journey with. We've been very much part of the journey on the new curriculum. And yeah, we are very much involved in the process. It's not just a case of feedback. I mean, we do actually, we have meetings regularly. We meet with the children, the pupil voice groups, and we feed back then to the full governing body. So yeah, as a monitoring committee and as a governor, we're very, very much involved.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Otherwise, we'll go on to the next question. I'm mindful of the time as well. Yeah, I think you've, excuse me, you've probably answered this. How are you working together as a cluster to ensure a consistency of approach? And I think you've really answered that, unless somebody's got something to add to it. No, there we are. Silence is golden, as they say. Thank you very much. The next question is from Sandra, and the second part of that question is Sarah.
Well, I have to say, as I submitted this question about learners, how are you taking your learners along with you on this journey? And how is information about the new curriculum being shared with the learners? But in actual fact, true to educationalists, they put the learners first, and you've answered it pretty much in every one of the questions you've referred to so far. So thank you very much. But if anybody wants to add anything, I'd be delighted.
Great. Could Sarah come in with her bit first, and we can answer the two of them then together? Sarah.
Sorry, I couldn't. The sound keeps going in and out. Which question are we on?
It's the one. How are learners responding? It's number E.
Right.
It was the second bit of E which you submitted, wasn't it? Yeah.
How are you taking learners along with you at the journey? Is that the one, Lyndon?
Yeah, that's it.
Sarah, you can hear me. Okay. How is information about the new curriculum being shared with the learners, and how are the learners responding to the new curriculum, particularly those who have had the experience of both systems?
Right. Who would
Did you hear that? Right.
Yes. Okay. No. Perfect.
Fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Good.
It's Gareth is coming in.
Hi there. Yes, I got E. So well, when this question came up and he said learners, we obviously see ourselves as learners as well. So I'd just like to say that basically everybody in the school is a learner, including chair of governors. We're not the finished article at all. It is that sentence. I know I always say when something goes wrong though, but every day is a learning day, isn't it? We're still learning as well. We're still picking up things, and I hope everybody's like that. I'd like to think our teachers would be looking at that way as well in helping everybody. So learners are clearly the main stakeholders of the new curriculum and school. But when a new curriculum is introduced, everyone is very much a learner as well. So not just the children. So it's important, and I think we've answered this previously as well, that similar to other schools, we looked at our staff and the pedagogy involved. So the way that we're thinking about how the new curriculum works really. So we looked at staff first of all, before we looked at learners, because when the new curriculum came in all honesty, we didn't know what it was going to be like in 4 years' time. So we decided to start the pedagogy behind it. So that if things do change, and in education things do, we've still got the pedagogy, which will help train our teachers in the way that we look at lessons, planning, assessment, etc. So we looked at the 12 pedagogical principles, and we created a shared understanding with staff what this meant. We looked at training for staff after the matrix of anything that we weren't sure of. I've got to say blended teaching came up as one thing that we looked at, and Luckily, COVID came into that and helped us with blended teaching as well, so we were quite prepared for that. And it's looking at, spend time looking at change management, which I've said is getting teachers on board, making sure that everybody's with us on the journey. And we felt that when you do something like that, it does take a long time to take everyone with you, but you're in a much stronger position instead of me as a head trying to force something through, which will be the shortest way of doing it, but not the best, is you take everyone on the journey with you. I'm making sure that you've shared why the journey is important with the new curriculum as part of the change management. So when we did that, we realised it's going to be a long journey with the children as well. We're not going to have the curriculum straight away. We have to take children not just along the journey, but we all have to go together with it in the way that they are teaching, the way that we are learning, the way that we're assessing what we need to do. And their input was very much important as part of the pedagogical principle and part of foundation phase pedagogy in making sure that there's pupil choice and child choice within things. So similar to other schools in the cluster, we asked all stakeholders, and I think this was a question that came up previously. We asked all stakeholders to share, create our vision. So we really went back to the start and looked at our vision and our aims. We had questionnaires with parent meetings. We talked to the children, what it is they want to learn, and you gather information. And Helen saying about Pengelly, and you're getting information from the community and things you wouldn't have known. Very much a learning resource with the community in what is Pont-y-Ddilys, what happens in Pont-y-Ddilys. And we ask parents to let us know of any old stories, things that used to happen that may not have been handed down and forgotten about. Obviously, the key thing was Rebecca riots. We knew about that, and we just wanted to get, were there any local historians in? So it offered an opportunity to include people then and try and develop that sense of conniving with the local community as well. So we asked what would our curriculum look like. So that included everyone, all stakeholders, governors, community, parents, grandparents, children, obviously. What would we like to learn about in our local area, but also linking in with other areas as well, not just our area, but with Swansea and then the wider part of Wales and then part of the world as well. So we wanted our pupils to have a strong sense of conniving. They feel proud as well, to have a sense of belonging, show respect for the school, community and the country, looking at where we are and developing that. So we try to help people develop their understanding of their identities, heritage, the histories, the landscapes, to form that, learning through contemporary historical context, investigation of their own localities as well as wider. And what is it really for Pont-y-Ddilys? So we try to develop people's confidence in leading their learning as part of the principles as well of pedagogy, and try to create an inclusive curriculum for our pupils where they've got an opportunity to create their own curriculum and what they want to find out. So pupil voice was very much important. We're not the finished article on it. We've got another questionnaire that's just gone out now. I haven't got the answers for that one. We've just got a questionnaire that's gone out to pupils now about how they feel. Is their voice heard within planning? Is their voice heard within the lessons over a short space of time, a larger space of time? So it's keeping on developing within the curriculum. So they've got a lot of pupil voice in influencing what they learn. And as all other schools have got, we've got the school council, we've got ethical teams, right respecting teams, we've got areas of learning experience ambassadors. They do wrap time, which is reflect and plan. So when they finish a piece of work, they have a chance to discuss what's happened in that work and how they move on from it as well. We've developed roof and route time, which is reflect on our term, reflect on our fortnight, where the children can see what they've done, how to move on, has it been successful. They have the what they know, what they want to learn, what have they learned grids as well. We've got wonder walls and question trees. So again, pupil voices is very, very important. So they contribute to the planning and lead their own learning. And I think where we've moved on from the old curriculum is we've taken things on board that we know can be quite effective and interesting for pupils, and try to adapt that now, given pupil choice within those areas, but also try to adapt for new areas as well, and listen to pupils about where they want their learning to go, really. Pupils are given opportunity to celebrate the 4 purposes through thematic weeks and standalone events throughout the school year. Teaching staff work closely in the purpose teams to plan exciting and engaging thematic weeks, as well as doing it throughout the year, which showcase the importance and variety of the 4 purposes. There's a calendar of events. So we've got Curriculum for Wales 2022 organises learning around 6 areas of learning experience, and they've been designed to support learners to realise the 4 purposes. Within the different areas that we've got, for ethical informed citizens, links in with fair trade in the spring term. Ambitious capable learners links in with mental health week in the summer term. Healthy confident individuals links in with anti-bullying in the autumn term. Enterprising creative contributors links with STEM challenges in the summer term. And then during those weeks, pupils take part in a variety of assemblies, shows, workshops, lessons, after school events that helps them develop the 4 core purpose statements. All teachers plan for the cross-curricular responsibilities of literacy, numeracy, digital competence, essential for learners to be able to participate successfully and confidently in the modern world. We've got big questions from the children. So the big question approach to topics where children can ask questions about the planning in the different areas. And as I said, at the moment, we're reviewing everything that we're doing by asking pupils to fill in a questionnaire to see how effective their pupil voice is. So anything that comes from that then, we'll adapt in our planning. And it's about constantly reviewing what we do, similar to what we want the children to do, is to reflect and plan, which is what we try and do on a grand scale with the children as well, and constantly ask them questions about what they think about the curriculum.
Okay, great. Thank you very much indeed. Does Sarah, do you want to come back on anything there? No.
No, thank you. Genuinely, that's it. Because of also the previous information, I think you've covered what we needed to hear.
Great, thank you. Thanks very much, Gareth. Anybody else want to come in before we go on to the final question? I bet you thought you'd never hear that. But final question. It's always going to be a challenge where we're all online as well, and so many of you as well. The final question, how do you feel about the support you've received from the local authority and Partneriaeth? I don't know who's going to come in.
Yeah, thank you. I'll pick that one up.
Great, thank you, Gareth.
Yeah, feel very well supported. We've been working together a lot more closely, I think, in the last 12 months. Yeah, the Curriculum for Wales has been with us really since around 2016, but there's been a great move of working more closely. When I say more closely, cluster, Partneriaeth, local authority. So I'll explain why. I'll give a few examples why we feel that, and then perhaps Alison, perhaps you could talk a bit more later about some of the challenges we've hit and how Partneriaeth and local authority have helped us through those. So yeah, support has been provided specifically in the cluster curriculum work, and it really accelerated in terms of development last summer, where colleagues across Swansea met in Towers, Jersey Marine, and within those meetings, our staff met as clusters, and thanks in particular Helen Tallett, who really drove those initial meetings with secondary and primary colleagues together. And what we found that came out of that was we finally felt as though we knew what we wanted to do, but needed more time and meeting time for staff. So since then, what's happened is we've had funding from Partneriaeth for groups of staff to meet at a subject level during the autumn term. But we also agreed on joint inset days. We had one in November and we had one last week. It doesn't feel like last week. It's been a busy couple of weeks, so which was last Monday. And we used that inset time where all the cluster met in the comprehensive school. Then after feedback from Adrian Smith, who presented earlier, Adrian had held a quick review by meeting with colleagues across the cluster, secondary, primary, found out where we were, fed back, and after a quick review of where we were, colleagues then split up into the subjects and the areas to continue that work. And what it looked like on the ground is that you had groups in classrooms around the school, staff sat next to each other, primary staff sharing what they do with secondary staff and Partneriaeth officers, and everybody learning from each other. Gareth just used that or explained how we're learning all the time. But what a fantastic professional development for all our colleagues in the cluster to learn from each other. And genuinely, how often has that happened perhaps over the last few years where we're all learning from each other in those ways. And it's something that, yeah, we can see it's working. We would like to build on that. And from a local authority point of view, I think I'm personally very fortunate that we have a school improvement advisor in Andrew Owen, who's a head teacher in Birchgrove, who understands the challenges, who understands the complexities around building this core curriculum, and is able to give advice, considered advice and alternative strategies, additional strategies that we talk about openly and frankly as six head teachers when we have our meetings. Our next meeting, I think meeting next Thursday, I believe, 26th of January. It's also at the local authority level. Secondary colleagues do meet as well in the SCASIN group, Secondary Curriculum and Self-Evaluation Network, where practice is shared that way. And also perhaps outside of the building of the core curriculum. For example, we were looking last year at our staffing needs and changing part of our TLR structure. So I was able to pick up the phone, get in touch with a colleague in Partneriaeth who was an expert in expressive arts, and she was then able to give an idea from her perspective of what's needed in terms of staffing in the school, and we've appointed since then. Yeah, training events have been provided over a number of years from Partneriaeth, and I think there's now a real sense of a growing level of focus and support with regard to the curriculum, and not just the curriculum, but the teaching and learning. Gareth mentioned about the importance of pedagogy a few moments ago, but I strongly feel best value for money would be achieved through financing the cluster colleagues that continue to meet together, work together. We really feel now we're partway along this journey, and it would be a real shame if we didn't have the capacity or resources to finish this job. Yeah, and I just feel that, the end product here is that what it does, it promotes a genuine continuum of learning from across phase, so their pupils, they're generally building on their prior learning. When the pupils come into year 7, staff know what provision they've had, what they've learned in primary school. It avoids repetition. As I said, it builds on prior learning, and the end product is improved pupil outcomes and improved pupil progress. So perhaps in terms of where we hitting challenges and obstacles and so on, perhaps Alison, could you perhaps go in a bit more detail there?
Yeah, no problem. So I suppose it just leaves me to summarise really what everybody said. So if I do what Gareth said really and share with you the challenges and how we've tried to overcome them. So I suppose there's 4 main ones really that you've probably gathered from what everybody else has said. So time being the biggest one, as Helen started with, so I'm going to come back to it. I think we all underestimated what a massive piece of work this is. It is extremely beneficial, but it is taking us longer than we thought. I think Partneriaeth will agree with us there. We have made massive headway, but it is a large piece of work. It's been massively helpful. I just think if I'd been a school on my own, trying to develop these progressions in the AOLE, I think I'd be rocking in a corner right now. So having 6 other schools on board and all of us doing it together has really decreased that workload and really been so useful. We've had the specialisms from the comp, you know, we've got specialist art teachers, specialist drama, specialist science technology. We've had the specialisms from Partneriaeth. And when we first started, I think we all felt slightly overwhelmed. We sat in the room. I think that first meeting, Helen was probably there, and everybody thought, we're never going to do this. And now I'm sitting here at a point where I sat in on the inset day and we've nearly finished. We've nearly finished art. And what I'm left with is something that I'm really excited to take back to my teachers. And as a non-art specialist, I could quite happily sit there and teach that art and think I'm really teaching these children good art skills that are going to be really useful when they go to comp. All the primaries are going to have the same art input, and we can do it in whichever way we like. It's not constrictive. It's just teaching them the right skills that they actually need for when they get to comp. We know what we're supposed to be teaching in a really constructive way. So although that seemed like a massive problem and still is a problem, we have overcome it by using 6 schools and all those heads. And I always say, I not only use the brains I have, but all the brains I can borrow. And that I think has been fantastic here, to be able to borrow all those brains, because it's made what was a massive task much more user friendly and much more enjoyable to do, because we all feel like we're in it together. And I think that's been a real bonding experience. So although time is still a challenge, the fact that we're all in it together and we have lots of us working on it has made that time constraint so much less than it would have been had I been a school working on my own, because I am quite a small school with only 7 teachers. So goodness knows how many years it would have taken us to get to the point that we are now. Then there's finances. So as Gareth rightly said, obviously releasing all those staff is really, really difficult. One of the ways we've overcome it is by accessing a grant from Partneriaeth, which has been greatly welcomed. That's allowed us to have days and release. Every staff, I think, and that's, you know, that's why the cluster has worked, is individual schools have made a commitment from their budget to release staff in their AOLEs and give them time and spend their budget money, even though budgets are really tight, because they think this piece of work is really worthwhile, and release them. So finances has been really useful. We're now looking to see if we can generate some more finances, because we need another couple of days. But that has been a huge hurdle, but it is a hurdle that outside agencies have helped us with. And luckily, because we're in it as a cluster, again, it's meant that I've had to release staff less than I would have had I been working on my own. So we've found ways to overcome that. But the commitment of the cluster has been huge in that. If everybody hadn't committed to that, I think that would have been, again, far more difficult than it was. Staff load and work pressure. I know James mentioned that. I'm not going to lie to you, James, if you'd spoken to us probably a year ago, my staff would have said they were feeling completely overwhelmed when it suddenly came to notice that we had to develop these progression documents. We didn't really know where to start. So it was great when Helen said she'd sit in and lead all the AOLEs, and we'd try and get, I think most of us as heads breathed a sigh of relief, thinking, oh my gosh, we're all in this together. We can all help each other out and we can actually get somewhere. So there was an impact on staff wellbeing. There was an impact on workload, no matter how much support we put in as leaders. I think we were feeling the pressure as well, that suddenly we needed these progression documents. But working as a cluster and being able to talk about those pressures and understanding that we were all feeling the same really made a big difference, and reassuring each other, going, look, we're getting somewhere now, we can do this. You know, if we plan this, and having a plan really made a really big difference again. And working with Partneriaeth and having their reassurance and having our school improvement officers come in and support us and say, look, you know, everyone's in the same boat, we're all, I think was really, really useful. So again, that's how we overcame it, was by coming together and saying, what are we going to do about this? Because this is, you know, something we need to deal with. How can we do it? So the help and support from cluster colleagues was immense with that. And then I think the other one was inconsistency of messages. There was lots of messages coming out from different places telling us different things at different times. And we just needed some consistency in those messages and knowing where we were. So I think, again, having 6 schools all sitting there and saying, well, whatever's going on out there, what do we need to do for our pupils? And that safety in numbers, and knowing that we were all going to do the same, was also a really added bonus and gave us that security, thinking, well, if we're all thinking the same and we all want our pupils to make great progress and we all do have high expectations for our pupils, then we must be doing something right. And then when Partneriaeth came in and supported us as well and said, you know, we're all on this journey together, that felt really well. So I think, although we have had 4 really big challenges, which are time, finances, staff workload and pressure, and inconsistency of messages, as a cluster, the biggest thing for us has meant that we've been able to overcome them because we've all been in it together and we've worked really well together. And that support from colleagues and Partneriaeth and our local authority has meant that what I think would have probably been a massive burden and task for individual schools has been made a much more enjoyable experience. And we've come away feeling like we've really done a really good piece of work that can be really useful for our schools, and our staff have developed wonderful working relationships now with other schools and with other things, and we can really see where we're all going, and that's been great. Sharing that expertise, having that time to talk, which we get very little of in our profession sometimes because we're so busy, has been absolutely phenomenal. So although I've got the challenging question, and there have been lots of challenges, I'm not, you know, we haven't overcome them all, we're still on that journey. There are ways around them, and working together has been, I think, the best way of overcoming those challenges, if I take anything else from this meeting. I hope that's helped anyway.
Thank you, Gareth, and thank you, Alison, for, you know, really excellent replies. Would anybody like to add anything? Otherwise, I'll ask Robert if he'd like to say a few words as the cabinet member. Robert.
Yes, I don't want to prolong the meeting unnecessarily, but I think I'd like to thank everyone who's contributed today, and especially the schools, because we knew this was a new departure for the education system across the whole of Wales, a new curriculum replacing a national curriculum that had been in existence since 1988. And that schools were used to delivering, schools were familiar with that structure. This was a completely new animal that schools and the education system needed to respond to. And I think the way schools are responding, this is a journey. We're not at the end of this yet. This is a process of continuous development, and I think it's all got to be a learning process, and it's got to be about collaboration and building on the strengths across the system. What I would like to say is, you know, we've known all along that there were immense strengths within our education system, within our schools in Swansea, and that the challenge was to harness that expertise and enable it to be deployed for the benefit of all learners across Swansea. And I think what we're hearing today, and the model that we've got, not only in the Pontarddulais catchment area, but certainly the standout this afternoon, that is something that we can be proud of and help to take forward as we move on the next stages of this journey, Chair. So I think with those words, I'll let you all have a well-earned rest, and thank you to everyone that's contributed this afternoon. Diolch yn fawr.
Great, thank you, Robert. And could I know the panel members, we've got about just a few quick agenda items afterwards, but our friends from the schools can escape. But can I say, as I said at the start, thank you very much for what you do. Your work is appreciated, and the amount of work you've done to actually you know, make this happen is tremendous. So thank you very, very much indeed, and thanks for giving your time this afternoon.
Thanks very much.
Thank you all. Thanks.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
all. Bye.
Thanks
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Great.
Oh, that was really interesting. Thank you.
It was really excellent, actually.
Yes.
You know, gosh, and you can see among the level of work that's gone in. And thanks, David, obviously, and for the work that you've been involved in making that happen. We've got to just very quickly, really, but I thought that was, before we go on to the agenda, I thought that was really useful to see what is actually happening with a cluster, with, you know, warts and all as well, when they talked about the time element, but how they were all coming together and the teamwork actually paid off, didn't it, really? They were working and they felt that that was really valued.
One thing that concerned me was, you know, schools shouldn't feel that they need to be doing this on their own. This was intended to be a collaborative model, and that I think is coming through in what we had this afternoon. And there are some questions, and I'm glad they've been as open as they have been with us, because we need to understand the strength. We also need to understand what's not working if we're going to address these. You know, they've got to be absolutely honest with us, and I think we had that this afternoon, because we can't address any issues unless we know clearly what those issues are, and the extent of any problems. So I think that's been very beneficial this afternoon.
Totally agreed. Sarah and then David.
I thought it was extremely insightful, and I think it also helped the support network they've obviously developed in these clusters, and perhaps friendships will keep them going longer in a very difficult career, which we don't want to lose any more teachers. I just hope they can keep the funding up from somewhere. I don't know, with everything that's going on, to keep those clusters and keep that support network going, because it obviously was really important, and they're doing great work. It's brilliant. Thank you. Very insightful.
No, it really was interesting. David and then James.
Yeah, thanks, Lyndon. First question is, are you happy for me to leave after I've made the comment?
Absolutely.
Or do you need me to stay?
No, you
Great.
can escape, yeah.
And I think we just be mindful that we've got, Swansea is obviously a very diverse city. You'll all be fully conversant with that. The Ponta de Lais cluster have strength in their leadership teams, as that's been evident today. And we need to be mindful that they've got a really strong team of partneriaeth officers who've been on that journey with them. We can't apply that to every cluster and with all of the officers that are provided to us by partneriaeth. So it's my job to hold partneriaeth to account for that, and we do that regularly. So it's just, we're going to see slightly different things across clusters in Swansea. And one example I can give, Councillor Smith will know that if you look at the Bishop Gore cluster, for example, which consists of the 3 schools in Mumbles and Bryn Mill, and then 3 schools in Penderry, the context provides a very difficult background to sharing practice such as this, because the children's experiences, life experiences, social context is so vastly broad that it does provide a level of challenge, and schools need to overcome that. So, just be mindful of that. But certainly the successes of that cluster and others, we should certainly continue to celebrate.
Great, thank you, David.
I hope, Robert, that was useful.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah,
great. Thank you, David, and thanks for your time. James.
Yeah, I was just going to echo everyone's thanks. It's very useful, and actually, David at least in part answered some of my questions. The 2 things really stood out for me. The first one was this looks like an extremely well organised and well joined up cluster. And I was going to exactly ask David, is this typical across the city? So you partly answered that. And I think, one, obviously, if you could feedback our praise to the cluster, but also, I guess it's a question for us all more broadly. We need to keep an eye out that this may not be how it's happening all across the city. And I think the second one was that point in terms of the feedback in Estin. You can see that they don't really know if they're doing it right, and they want to be doing it right. And I don't know if there's any way we can get them softer feedback faster than something that's not a formal inspection, because that's the pressure levels there will be titanic. Whereas, yeah, it'd be great if they could get more feedback. I don't know how that can be done, but some of you have more experience than me and maybe can do that.
Well, don't forget that there's the first of all, yes, we want this to be a common standard of operation across all clusters, James. Whether we're actually there yet is another issue. Don't forget, everyone as I said before, this is the process. But yes, that's the aim, that all clusters would be working to the same high standard. In terms of ESTIN inspection and how we feed back to schools, because ESTIN is only part of the equation. We've got our own termly visits to schools, and I think those need to play and are playing a vital part in this. It's what our own officers, our own school improvement and school support professionals put in. We can draw on partneriaeth as well. So it's not just about ESTIN. And I don't think it should be all about responding to ESTIN. It's about having the confidence in our own system and self-validation and that we're confident that is robust.
Well, thanks.
Great, thanks. Sandra, you had your hand up. It's down now, but I don't know if you want to add anything.
Sorry, yeah, I was just going to echo that. Ponta Delice is well known as being an exemplar cluster. They have had that cluster going back and those relationships going back for years that have built and strengthened over that time. That's not to say that other clusters aren't working well, but they are at the leading end of that. And I do think we need to be mindful that there will be a range behind them who are developing and working at different levels and are needing greater support. And it did strike me when, if Ponta Delice are talking about workload and struggling with things like that, then it does make me think, what are the others doing? How much support do they need? And certainly in terms of workload and so on, to be able to make it as effective an experience.
Okay, great, thanks. Can I get Angela and then David, if you can sort of come in last? Angela.
Yeah, just sort of echoing really what Sandra and James have said, in that if they were so exemplary as a cluster and they were refreshingly honest about the challenges that they faced, it would be nice, A, for them to have some support and clarification that what they're doing is right. And then offering that support maybe to some of the other people who are maybe a little bit more lonely or isolated, because inevitably not everyone is going to work together as well as they do. And if they were a standard of excellence, then yeah, maybe the others actually do need quite a bit of support, because if they found it quite challenging, that's all I'd like to just say. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Yeah, good point. David.
I'll be really brief. James, this links to your point about ESTIN. ESTIN's view around the progress and quality of the preparation for Curriculum for Wales is firmly footed in the progress that learners make. If learners make effective progress, ESTIN walk away happy. If that curriculum design process is robust, learners will make progress, and we tend, because of the complexity around the documentation and the mandatory statutory guidance, forget and lose sight of that. So provided that learners make progress towards the realisation of the four purposes, utilising the mandatory and statutory elements of the curriculum, then that's where that's where our focus needs to be. And I just want to assure you, members, that this term's spring visit, and I've been in a primary school today, sharply focused with children, looking at what children can and can't do, and that would be the basis of my report to that school, which is what ESTIN would do on a 6-yearly basis. And hopefully over a period of time in the coming couple of years, we'll be in a position to do that for all 95 settings within Swansea, where we've obviously had a halt over the last couple of years. So learners making progress, and that's our start and end point.
Great, thanks, David. Mike.
I'm sure you're going to come on to it, Lyndon, but it's a question of how we might help Michelle capture, some of the main points out of this discussion. And I'm sure that there are many points that come out of it, but I don't know whether is it the appropriate time to move on to that and to see what we can do.
That's the next item on the agenda, because I can see 1 or 2 people disappearing now for varying reasons. We need to discuss, those points for that letter. Obviously, Michelle has been taking notes as we've been running through. But can I suggest possibly that Michelle send us a draft, and then we can add
Good idea.
all add to that.
Yeah.
And we can share it between ourselves, because a lot of really important stuff came out of this meeting. It was going to be challenging because you very seldom get a meeting where nearly everybody in the room, and there were about 27 people, were all contributing. You know, so it was always going to be challenging, but so interesting and really, I think, good to do, really. So can I suggest that as the way forward?
Yep, that would be an excellent idea.
Okay, great. The next item on the agenda then is the work programme. The only thing I mention is, we mentioned it yesterday, is that in the Scrutiny Programme Committee, Councillor Rebecca Fogarty asked about attendance. Well, I know the CDC, as it now is, not the PDC, is discussing attendance. In fact, we're discussing it next week. And maybe in later on this year, after May, this committee can looking at attendance, where some of those things that the CDC are talking about are being put in place, and we can look to see how successful they've been, because obviously attendance across Swansea is pretty good, I have to say. But during the pandemic, there were challenges in getting people back to school. So I think we need to possibly look at that and put that, if that's with everybody's agreement, we look to do that in, say, May or June or something. And we'll check with Helen as well to see when the best time is. And I can see, as it involves Michelle, Michelle is coming in. Michelle.
Hello, yes, actually it's just the end of the last item, really. I was going to thinking that it might be a good idea when we write to a cabinet member is to have it in two parts, to have the main letter which will address the your thoughts, because obviously there's quite a lot of information that was you know, talked about today, and I think maybe we can give that back to schools and actually use that information as well. So I was thinking, well, we could have that first half and then have a second half be about what you learnt. So maybe an appendix to that would be about what you learned, which is then also sent to the schools and can be shared and used as a part of the best practice anyway, from that discussion. So I'll put that together and send it around to you for you to have a look at.
Thank you very much. And the last item on the agenda was just for information, and that's recent individual school inspection outcomes, and we can all look at that. But otherwise,
sorry, Linda, can I just make a brief comment on that? You know, it's very helpful to have that, and I just wondered if you, on behalf of the Scrutiny Committee, could, you know, write to the schools and just acknowledge the fact that you know, we've seen this, and you know, we look forward to them in some cases you know, coming forward with the action plans that they've identified. I don't know whether at some point, you know, those action plans could be reported back to us so we can check on progress, and just to thank the schools for the work that they're doing.
Absolutely. I think hopefully we did that throughout the, you know, at the start and at the end as well, to say a big thank you to what they were doing. But no, absolutely, I can do that, and to say thank you all, because it's been a bit of a marathon, but I think nevertheless really interesting to do. And you know, I've certainly learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody has as well. So thank you very much indeed. And I was going to say have a safe journey home, but we're all probably sitting there. So thank you very much.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Lucky me, I have another one at 6:30. Yay!
Oh, sometimes you get lucky.
Good night, all.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Bye.
Have a lovely evening all.
Bye.